Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, as you saw when you came in, our speaker series, we always record them and they are stored on our Her library. So, if you can't hang out with us the entire evening tonight, or if you happen to miss any of our speaker series, they're always available in our Her library. We'll be sharing so much information this evening that you'll definitely want to go back and even re-listen. You'll have access to Terri's slides that she goes through to just sort of relearn the information that she gives us, to know that you always have access to that. A little plug. We will, we do our speaker series every month. So just something to think about moving forward. If you love tonight, please join us in March. Again, we will have our friends back from Revital Cancer Rehab with one of their specialists talking about chemo brain and chemo fog and what it is and what we can do about it. So we know that that topic comes up a lot. So we will be discussing that in March. So just a little plug to put that on your calendar. It's March 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern time, as we always host them. Again, mute yourself during the presentation, but Sue and I will be monitoring the chat and passing those questions along to Terri as she moves through her presentation. But we definitely encourage, asking questions and participating throughout the course of our evening.
Beautiful. And then one more, just another, huge thank you. Our digital education series, we can't do it without them. So it's brought to you tonight by our 2022 education sponsor. That is our presenting sponsor, Merck, and our supporting sponsor, Exact Science. So thank you to two incredible partners that help make our job a lot easier. All right, I'm going to replace you, Erin. I'm going to bring up our friend. Do you think it's time?
I do. Yeah, I think we're excited.
Very good. All right, Terri, I'm putting you front and center.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, where you should be. Oh, so welcome, Terri Crudup. And I am so honored to actually introduce her tonight because Terri and I go back pretty far. I remember her coming into our office to do an interview with me. And it was just so sweet. She wanted to give back even during treatment. She was finding her way to give back. And, as a patient going through treatment, she definitely availed herself to all of our services. And then she advanced herself to do some volunteer work at Unite for Her, some fundraising, some speaking at Pink. And then she started working with Dr. Lena Lee, who's actually our board chair, and many of you may know her, to design a study that showed the link between integrative and survival. Terri is a senior principal at Acuvia, so her background led so beautifully to put these two, worlds together for good. And here we see her today, right? Here she is helping us to educate, advance others, raise awareness, improve access and funding, and just give this beautiful patient advocate story. So Terri, there was one quote you sent us, and I actually thought it was great. I wanted to share with everyone that you had said that one of the things that she was, I am most proud of, I'll say it in your voice, is that I wanted to give back to the cancer community and Unite for Her. And I figured out my unique way of doing it, much like you figured out your unique way of serving Unite for Her. There are so many ways to help, and I love encouraging friends and survivors to find their way. So Terri, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
Can you guys see my screen? I'm sharing it. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know there's at least one, my husband's son. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I am so thrilled to be here and really, really excited to be talking to this wonderful community of people. I just start out by saying, whenever I meet a patient who is touched by cancer, I always say it's a club that no one wants to belong to. But once you're here, it's such a great group of people, like the people I've met through Unite for Her, the patients I've met, the people I've met who support those patients. I'm going to try tonight to help everyone make the most of being part of this club. So I'm going to take you through my journey and what I've learned really about how people affected by cancer can be part of their own healing and survivorship. I tend to talk fast. Sue and Erin, definitely let me know if I'm talking too fast. And if anything goes wrong with the slides, of course, let me know. What I want to do is leave the audience today with some ideas of how you can apply what I've learned in your own life. And if you're actively using your Unite for Her passport, there's definitely ways in here that you can think about applying those funds, a little framework I've developed to help you think through that. My lens is one of a cancer patient, two-time cancer patient, an early stage and a later stage, stage 0, and then later stage 3. I do think the lessons I've learned apply across all types of cancer, whether you're newly diagnosed, whether you're living with cancer, whether you're in treatment, whether you're a survivor post-treatment, there's going to be lessons in here for all of you. And even if you're a caregiver or a support person who doesn't have cancer, I think there's things you can take away from this. So please do put questions in the chat section. Erin's going to monitor and let me know if there's anything I need to address. All right, so now I'm going to introduce myself. This slide is showing a bunch of pictures. I hope you guys can see it. Let me get to my notes. So I live in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. A lot of people local to the area. And I'm a market researcher and also a consultant to the pharmaceutical industry. So I've been doing that work for 20 years, which basically means I'm not a healthcare worker. I have the utmost respect for healthcare workers. I'm not one, but I know a lot about healthcare. So I come at my treatment from a very specific place. I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. Some pictures of the upper left-hand corner is my sister and my mother there, and my sister's son. We have 7 grandkids between the 4 of us, and I myself have 2 kids. You can see in the middle there, Izzy is 12 and Lexi is 9, and they're the light of my life. That's from our absolute favorite vacation ever in Hawaii. And my husband, Larry, you can see there in a couple of the pictures on the right and in the middle. He is a wonderful husband, an amazing father, and a really great partner. I couldn't have done everything I've done without him. And the other part where I get a little verklempt is when I talk about my mom friends in the lower left-hand corner there. They're the support system I never knew I needed. But I'm so glad I had them in my life when I went through my cancer. And since they've been a great, wonderful support for me, and I'm so blessed to have them. So this is all kind of the happy version of my life. And just to say, my life hasn't been without its challenges. My mom, you can see there in the picture, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was 10 years old, and she's kind of been battling that her whole life. And my dad died suddenly of a heart attack when I was 19. And I have a family history of cancer that struck me for the first time at age 39. So I've had my challenges, I've had my life lessons. And as I kind of advance the slide here, what I wanted to talk about was more specifically my cancer journey. And I do like to show this to anyone who's going through treatment so that you can see the hair does grow back. That's kind of my big thing about this slide. So my first diagnosis was in 2013. And at that point I was stage 0 DCIS. And I had surgery. I had a unilateral mastectomy. I had 2 lymph nodes removed at the time. Everything was negative, and the doctors sort of said, everything's good, go on and live your life. So when it came back 6 years later in 2019, my doctors were shocked. I was shocked, not very happy about the whole thing, but it had spread I had 21 lymph nodes removed, and it had spread to 8 of them, and it had spilled out to the interstitial space, which generally means it could have been anywhere in my body. And so at that point, I got surgery, I got chemo, I got radiation, I got it all. And so I think I'm going to take you through again, like the lessons that I learned going through all of that. But just quick on the pictures, you can see in August 2019, I didn't have any hair under that beanie. And in February of 2020, I was at Pink, which is a Unite for Her fundraising event and gymnastics event. And it's amazingly fun. And it's coming up February 18th through 20th. So I thought I'd plug that real quick. You can see I kind of had the buzz cut going in February 2020. And then in September 2020, I had what I called my mad scientist hair. And that was at the Unite for Her 5K in September. And a year later at the Unite for Her, again, virtual 5K. It's harder to see there, but you guys can see now my hair's back. I'm very excited to have, I actually put it in a ponytail for the first time 2 weeks ago, and it was like a huge day in my life. So it does grow back. We do get through this. We can get through this. So I'm just gonna tell you guys today, the themes of my talk. Maybe I'll just take this back to the first slide so it's not distracting. What I want, if you take nothing else away from this presentation, you are a patient who's been touched by cancer, I want you to remember these things. Be selfish. This is the time, if you're going through treatment, to take care of yourself first, so that then you can help the others around you, and ask for help. I asked for a lot of help, and I was one of those people before. I learned how to be selfish and ask for help. The second thing is, can be an active part of your healing and survivorship. So think about the mind and body and soul energy balances that I'm going to show you today, and which ones you might need to work on, and then commit and practice. If you're going to take this seriously, you have to commit. And number 3 is, look for connections and be open to new things, because I don't think I would be here in this position today if I didn't open up to things that Unite for Her taught me, if I didn't make connections like that, and if I didn't try out some new things. And I really think a lot of these practices have really helped me in my daily life. So those are my wishes for you to remember as we go through. All right, for just a minute, I want to do an interactive exercise. So for this portion, we won't be looking at any slides, we'll just be sitting for a few minutes. And I actually want to ask everyone at this point, if you have a piece of paper and a pen, to take that out. And if you didn't have a piece of paper and a writing utensil, you could probably grab your smartphone and find the little notes section in it, which could also help you record what we're going to do here. So for this exercise, and even if you're not going through cancer, again, this is an exercise you can do as well. So what I want everyone to do is close your eyes for just a couple of minutes. I'm going to ask you to clear your mind and take a few deep breaths. And I'm going to walk you through this. We're going to inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, and do that 5 times. It's my 5-5-5-minute meditation. So if everybody's ready, I want you to inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last one. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now, if you can just keep your eyes closed for a minute, try to clear your mind, just listen to the sound of my voice. What I want you to do is, for the next couple of minutes, pretend that cancer does not exist. You don't have cancer, nobody else has cancer. And I want you to picture yourself just as you are today. Just put a picture in your mind of yourself, but no cancer. Think about who you are as a person. And I want you to first think about up to 3 things that you would like to keep the same about yourself as you are today. So 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things, a few things you like about yourself. And then conversely, think about a few things that you would like to change about yourself. And again, 1, 2, max of 3 things. Think about that for just a minute. And then you can open your eyes and go ahead and jot those down. And really, this can be anything, just it's about you. It's not about cancer. And I'm going to do this exercise with you because I've not done it myself. I'll give everyone a minute to think about that. Okay, give me about 30 more seconds. All right, I'm going to keep pushing forward. If you are still thinking, feel free to go ahead and keep jotting a couple of notes down. We're going to come back to that. So by the end of this presentation, we're going to kind of go back and look at those and see if there's some things that I've given you to help you address some of the things that you want to change. For now, I'm going to take you a little bit back in time through my journey. And I will bring up a couple of slides in a minute to give you guys a little bit of educational material. But I've talked to you about, I had cancer twice. So before my second diagnosis, the one that was more advanced, I would summarize who I was as a hardworking, career-driven mom, raising 2 kids and caring for my elderly mother who was living with us for several years. I've lived a good life. I didn't complain about my life. I had no complaints, but my work-life balance was not in balance. My mantra was kind of power through, like I can do this, I can do anything. I had this idea in my mind that I had to make money so that my kids would be protected. And I think that was rooted in my mom being sick and my dad, losing my dad at a young age. So I always thought if I got older and I had to support my kids myself, that I needed to make a lot of money to do that. So I was in a business career. I kind of started my day every day mentally organizing the list of things I had to do that day. I would get in the shower and think about, here's the 10 things I need to do. Here's the 5 I can actually get to. These 3 have to wait till tomorrow. And oh, I forgot I'm supposed to do this for my daughter today. Every morning, that's how I started my day. And when I would spend time, doing whatever activity I was doing, whether it was work or family or whatever, I was almost always thinking about, well, what am I going to do next? Like, I have so much to fit in the day. How am I going to get it all in? And my mind was kind of constantly spinning. And I, thought I ate healthy by counting calories and having a salad for lunch. But I learned that's not really the best advice. So I'll tell you how I've changed that. I didn't really have any structured exercise, and I really thought I didn't have time or need for making new friends. And you guys have already heard, I have made new friends, and that was a hugely important part of my healing. So when I got my second diagnosis in 2019, I was literally scared for my life, and I had to figure out a way to do better for myself. So I started to do research. I am a researcher by trade. So first I researched the medical portions. And then I researched, when I was happy with I asked my doctors a million questions about surgery and chemo and radiation. And once I got through that, I started looking more into these other therapies I had heard about, like acupuncture and massage and psychotherapy and things like that. And I really got fascinated with this idea of what I could do to help myself. So I'll bring up a slide. There were 2 things that I learned that I, go back, sorry. 2 kind of learnings that I had, and this is going to be in the materials that we leave behind for you guys as well. And this is the first one. And Sue, can you just confirm now you can see the slide with this quiz on it, bunch of colors and stuff?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Erin.
Sure.
So I came across this quiz from the American Institute of Cancer Research. And I'm not going to go through the quiz. There is a link down at the bottom there under the colors. If you guys want to take one, they've updated it, but it's very similar to this. And it basically says, these are the risk factors for cancer, for getting cancer. And my thinking was, well, if I've already had it, and now I've had it twice, these are probably the same risk factors for getting it again. And I'm going to do something about that this time. So you can see a lot of this is about like BMI, and activity is related to BMI, of course. Eating fruits and vegetables and whole grains and not eating high fat sugar foods and sugary drinks and red meat and processed meat. Those are also related to BMI, among other things, causing inflammation in the body, for example. And then there's the don't have alcohol, don't smoke, and use sun protection. So when I took this quiz, I have to say I was failing pretty hard. I was doing well at a few of them, but I was failing the majority of them. So that was it. That was my roadmap. Like, here's what I need to work on. And I will work on those things. And at the, and I will say too, again, if you are living with cancer right now, these things still, I think, can apply to you in terms of like living the best life that you can be living in the healthiest way that you can and feeling the best. So the other one though, this was half of it. This was a lot about the body and what I needed to do with my body. The other part, though, was about the mind and about stress. So, and I have a whole separate presentation just about stress management, but I'm going to give you guys just the 5-minute version here. I can literally see myself when I was reading, I was sitting in my bedroom on my bed, reading a passage about fight or flight hormone and stress. And I can to this day see myself reading that and a light bulb going off over my head. I mean, it was just so amazingly eye-opening. And I knew about fight or flight hormone and I knew about stress before this. It was connecting those dots that put me in a totally different place. So the idea here is, we know what stress is. It's a physical, chemical, or emotional factor that causes you to feel tension. And that can be bodily tension or mental tension. And that definition there says it may be a factor in disease causation. It's known to be linked to several diseases, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But essentially, what's going on in our world these days is, you know, back in caveman times when it was actually possible you would be eaten by something bigger and toothier than yourself, there was a need for your body to go 0 to 90 into fight or flight. And that was actually a way to protect your life, to actually get you out of that situation as best as you could. That's the sympathetic nervous system taking over and releasing very specific hormones in your body to increase your heart rate, to elevate your blood pressure, to increase your blood sugar, which at that moment in time is good. What's not good is when that's extended and that moment becomes hours, days, weeks of your body living in this fight or flight and having those hormones released and that physiological effect on your body. And really what's happening, I think, in our society today is, you guys heard me talk about how I wasn't present. You know, my mind was always going off in different places about what's next. And in the morning, I would organize my list and my mind was spiraling from the moment I woke up. That was my problem. It's this kind of, the other part of it that feeds in is also if you're always on a device, you're checking your email and then you go and check your Facebook and you're doing this and you're doing that. When is the time to rest and repair? When is the time to calm the mind? And by constantly be going and doing these things, we're either putting ourselves into fight or flight, or we're raising our baseline so that it is easier for you to get there in the future. And what you want to do is lower your baseline. You want to bring that down because, I'll show you on the next slide, those fight or flight hormones, prolonged exposure to them are linked to high blood pressure, negative mood disorders, and type 2 diabetes. And there is evidence, emerging evidence, it may be linked to reactivating cancer cells. So here's me pretty much figuring out, I've had cancer twice. I'm a stress bucket all the time. I'm pretty sure those two things were linked. So I need to manage my stress. I need to figure out ways to get my body into rest and repair. And you can't be in rest and repair when you're in fight or flight. So there's methods that we can use. Meditation and mindfulness are obvious methods, but there's others I'm going to show you later as well that help affect the mind and help you get that calmer state. All right, so that's kind of my lessons learned. And what I'm going to do now is sort of fast forward in time to when I had finished my research, because I want to kind of level set everyone with some definitions of what is integrative oncology and what is all of this, you know, therapies that I keep talking about that I used. So I've advanced the slide. This is, to me, probably one of the most important slides I've ever built in my life. And I had help formatting it. I've shown it in every presentation I've done for the 2 years I did my research. This was the first slide I showed. And the title of it actually said, prove the link to survival and spur pharma to action. That was actually my goal from day one. And the idea here is, just for some definitions, integrative oncology is combining those primary medical treatments up in that top row with any combination of complementary and lifestyle approaches or therapies. So what I mean by that is there's 12 listed here, either in the complementary or the lifestyle section. They are not the only 12. There are other integrative modalities as well. I had to kind of shorten the list to be able to do research. So I chose the ones that I found in the literature were used more and were just more common across different articles that I was reading. So again, not the only options. And the other thing is, I don't expect any patient to be doing all 12 of them. That's a lot, right, to ask of anybody. So what I think is the beauty of this is you have choice. Choice is actually a really good thing. There's different ways that each of these modalities will help you, and you have some say in what you want to do. And by the way, if you're having Unite for Her passport, a lot of these will be covered through the funds from Unite for Her. And actually some of it even, like nutrition, I learned my improved nutrition in 30 minutes on the phone with Erin, and that was my Bible moving forward, and that was free. And that was awesome, Erin. I still have my notes from when we talked. So my research was to show combining these things, the primary medical treatments with the complementary lifestyle, is going to help patients kind of in their day-to-day life and in their survival outcomes. And there's a need for it. And I'm happy to say that the results have read out within the last 6 months. The survival piece just came in December last year. And I think I showed what I was trying to show. So I'll give you guys just a glimpse of 2 pieces of information from my research. This here is a slide showing some of the survey research that we did with oncologists and patients. And essentially the numbers that you'll see in the middle of the slide there are both oncologists and patients strongly agreeing with the statements that the integrative approach improves patient well-being, and then separately agreeing with the statement, strongly agreeing that it improves patient quality of life. And that's sort of compared to just using the medical treatments, the surgery and the chemo and the radiation, et cetera. So 2/3 almost of each group strongly agreed with those statements in our survey research. And in addition to that, 60% of patients strongly agreed it improves their treatment outcomes. And there was actually 1/3 of doctors who said they believed it improved survival as well. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of data, like clinical trial data, to say that it improved treatment outcomes. Now, because it took me 2 years to do this research, there actually is now clinical trial data, which is very exciting, that I've now cited in my paper, that talks about how integrative does improve treatment outcomes. And I'll tell you now, the one that has been studied the most in clinical trials is exercise. So if there's one thing that you can do to help yourself, if you have to pick one, move your body. It is my advice. It's highly important. They're studying nutrition now. Nutrition is much more complicated with so many different facets to it, but nutrition is going to be borne out as probably the next one. And they're starting to even look at nutrition and exercise together as a combined to say, how can we really get the most survival benefit out of those things? The only other thing I'll say about the survey part of the research was it's certainly validated that there's not enough access to these integrative therapies and funding. Now, I know that Unite for Her has those, but at the time I started this research, Unite for Her was not national, and there's a ton of cancer patients across the country. So I was coming at it from the lens of trying to survey people all across the country. So the second part I'll show you of my research, I'll just go over this briefly. The idea of survival, right? I don't have the luxury of actually running a clinical trial. My company does that, but it's not my part of the company. And I knew that would take too long. So I wanted to use data that we already have available. This is data that is basically generated when you go to the doctor and have a visit, or when you pick up a prescription. There's a claim filed for everything. And we have access to that data in a very HIPAA privacy compliant way. I never see any patient names, everything's de-identified. But we have data that we can look across time to see patients' characteristics. We don't have every variable, I wish we did, but you can see on the left-hand side some of the variables that we included about the patients themselves in the study. And on the right-hand side, what we married that up against was information about their hospitals. The institutions is what they're called, basically where these patients were being treated. Do they have, some of these higher level designations? Those are certain cancer bodies in the United States that basically rate hospitals for how well they're doing in treating cancer patients. And then how involved are they in integrative? So the one that you can see in the orange box there is integrative score. And so what we did was basically say, again, this is national study, hospitals across the United States. How are they doing for those 12 therapies that I talked about earlier? on educating their patients about them. Like, do they even mention nutrition, acupuncture, massage, Reiki, any of them? And then accessing those things. So do they help patients kind of provide a path to get to some of those modalities, and then funding them, because these aren't free. Some of them are, but most of them are not free. So are the hospitals actually doing this? And we ended up with a really nice distribution of cohorts. Some were in this very low bucket, doing very little education, supporting and providing. Some were in kind of this middle area, and some were in the very high area. And the high you guys can probably picture if you know Cancer Treatment Centers of America. There were a couple in my sample, and of course they scored through the roof because that's kind of their positioning in the market. But there were plenty of hospitals in these middle areas. And the model that we built, it's a regression model at the end of the day, with survival as the dependent variable. And the model did bear out that hospitals that are not in that low category, basically, if you can just get over the low threshold and get to this sort of middle area, there is a survival benefit for their patients, and it's up to a 3-fold survival benefit. Now that number kind of varies depending on what your original survival stat was, but it's basically adding percentages to whatever category you were in to start with. And I'm happy to kind of address that later in the Q&A if you guys want to talk more about that. But so I don't want anyone here to think, oh my God, my hospital's not offering me any of these, I need to go find a new doctor. You guys have it through Unite for Her. Like, my whole model is based off of what Unite for Her offers. So please don't leave this talk thinking I need to go find a different place to be treated. If you're using your passport and you're using it for these modalities, these therapies that we're talking about, you're fine. You're doing all the right things. But if you do want to start doing something new, you should talk to your doctor, because I would never recommend anybody go change a lot of their habits without first consulting with their oncologist. So let me just pause for a second and go over one more little part before I show you the diagram. I did a lot of things to change myself. And basically what it came down to was I knew I had issues in like my body. Like, I was overweight and I was, not healthy and things like that. And I knew I also had issues in my mind, like the stress and all of that stuff. And I knew there was a third component, which was soul. And for me, that was, I'll tell you in a minute, like what my definition of soul is versus other definitions. But I knew I needed to work on all of those. And so I'm not sure if I've said this yet, but I actually took 7 months off of work when I was re-diagnosed. And I was very fortunate to be at a job that would support me with long-term disability, and a husband who would accept a slightly lower salary for 7 months while we were, I was figuring out what I needed to do. And so I obviously used my Unite for Her passport. I personally tried acupuncture and massage and psychotherapy and the veggie shares. And I still to this day do therapy and veggie shares regularly. And I love it. I'm so happy that I was introduced to those things through this process. I also joined the YMCA Live Strong Cancer Support an exercise group program, which I think because of COVID has been suspended, but it was an awesome program. It was 12 weeks where they taught us how to exercise, and even as cancer patients, like what your limitations are and what you can and can't do. And it was also part support group. So we got to know the people there, and we would talk every week when we met. And that was enough to get me started to the point that I do go to the gym. I go twice a week. And I don't have to drag myself there like I used to. I love it. I go, and I literally, every time I go, I'm thinking about, I'm doing everything I can to keep myself healthy and to keep my cancer at bay. I joined another support group, the Young Breast Friends of Bucks County. I still meet with them once a month and love the friends that I've made through that group, some of whom might be on tonight. So shout out to YBF. And for the soul part, I kind of took stock of the people in my life, and I distanced myself from a couple that I thought were more of the invite drama type of people. And I deepened my relationship with my energy positive friends, which obviously you guys have heard me talk about my mom friends. That was a big part of that. I started taking qigong, which I absolutely love and recommend to everyone. Qigong is stationary Tai Chi. It's breathing and stretching, and it gets your body flowing. It gets your chi flowing. And I come out of a half-hour qigong class and I feel like I've had a massage and been to a different place. And it's just a wonderful feeling. And I do yoga as well. I use the Calm app. Those are 10-minute meditations. They are super quick and easy. And if I do them regularly, my stress levels come down. If I don't do them regularly, I actually feel it creep back up. So I'm being more vigilant about that in my life. And I start my day now every day with a wellness practice. So my wellness practice, instead of my list of everything I have to do every day in the shower now, it is one thing that made me smile yesterday, one thing I'm grateful for, and one thing I will do for my health today. And that's usually something about exercise or movement, but not every day. I give myself breaks. And sometimes it's just, I'm going to go out to dinner with my girlfriends because that's what I need for my health today. And that's one of my favorite things that I do too, is my 3-part wellness practice. And I changed my relationship with food. So I don't like the word diet. It's not that I don't believe in them. It's just, that's not what it's about. For me, it was about realizing that food is not just to make myself not hungry. And it's not, I was an emotional eater as well. It's not comfort food. It's not just eating to feel better. It's about nurturing my body and my mind, because they're connected. And so what I did was basically exactly like I said, what Erin had told me. I cut sugar way down. I look for less than 5 grams of added sugar in labels now. And, try to make sure that that's not everything I eat has that much added sugar. Chemicals and processed are out. If I can't pronounce what's in the label, or I can't picture it in my cabinet, which is exactly what Erin taught me, I don't want to eat it. And I'm not saying I don't ever make exceptions to this, but they're way down. And basically half of what I eat daily is vegetables every day, like by the end of the day. And that doesn't mean like every Friday night I have a piece of pizza for dinner, but I have a salad with it. And I had a heavy vegetable lunch to sort of balance that out. And it's my 1 piece of pizza a week. And I also, when I went back to work, I changed my role because I realized that stress, work was a big part of my stress. And so by changing my role, I was able to also decrease my stress and also decrease the hours I worked every week by about 4 or 5 hours. And that was enough to say, that's my time for me. I'm going to do my exercise. I'm going to do my qigong. I'm going to do my meditations in that found time. And that was a huge thing too for my success. So what I'm going to,
Terri,
yeah.
Could I interrupt? We had one question in the chat.
Sure.
Just asking to repeat your 3-part wellness practice that you start your day with. I think we're all sort of writing those down as well.
Okay, no problem. Sure, Erin, thank you. So it's one thing that made me smile the day before, one thing I'm grateful for, and one thing I will do for my health today. And I'll tell you, Erin, no problem. I found that they feed on each other. So the thing that made me smile might also make me realize what I'm grateful for. And I've also started telling people, like when I get a nice email during the day or something like that, like, oh, every day I think of something that made me smile the day before, and you're going to be my thing tomorrow. And that just brings that person joy, and then that brings me joy. And I found it's just this wonderful, happy snowball from that practice.
Yeah, love that.
Cool. Anything else, Erin?
A couple people are just asking about the mindfulness, the meditation app, Calm, and we've mentioned Headspace. And Annie is asking about qigong, practice of it.
Yeah, so the spelling is QI, and then the second word is GONG. So that's how you spell it. It's my qigong instructor tells me the best way to describe it is stationary Tai Chi. I can give you guys a little demo. If you've ever seen like people in Hawaii on the beach, like, doing their arm movements and stuff, there's one called cloud hands where you're sort of like going like this. And that's what it is. You're breathing as you're moving, and it's helping to sort of massage your organs internally and get chi moving. Chi is energy. It's very easy. There's classes for this for even people who have limited mobility. Like my mother used to come to qigong class with me when she was leaving the house more, and she would sit and do qigong. So I would say look into it a little bit more, but anyone can do it. And it just, like I said, if you find the right instructor, I think it makes your body and your mind feel amazing.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so let me take you guys through the framework, because I think this is the part where it's going to be, okay, how can you apply what I've learned to yourself? And we're going to loop back to our exercise that we started in the beginning. So as I said before, to me, it was all about this sort of trinity of body, mind, and soul. And body, really, the way to think about it is things that are done to or put into your body that help repair and protect. And for mind, it's things that bring the mind stillness, clarity, focus, calm. And for the soul, to me, soul is about connection. So these are, by the way, these are my definitions. This is not a unique diagram. You can find this diagram in a lot of wellness literature, but the definitions are mine. Soul to me is about connection. So it can certainly be religious. It could be about a god or a deity or a set of gods or energy, if that's your chosen religion. But it doesn't have to be. For me, it's more those other two about family and community. And that was what I knew I needed to deepen when I was going through treatment. But I'm a big proponent of, if you do have a chosen religion and you are spiritual, that's a great way to kind of deepen that soul connection as well. And a lot of cancer patients will tell you that that's where they go to help with that part of their healing. So what I want you to think about, let me advance the slide here, is there's kind of two questions here under each of them. So I'm going to start with body again and go around. For body, do you think about how what you put into your body affects you? Do you think about how it makes you feel, either as you're, having a meal or later in the day or the next day even? Because once you kind of get tuned into this, there are things that you'll realize you can feel by eating different types of foods that are good and bad for you. And do you make the effort to move your body regularly? Like I said before, the one thing so far that's been very strongly proven is exercise has an effect on survival odds. And really, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean go to the gym 5-7 times a week. Any movement is good movement. I'm a big walker for the days I don't go to the gym. And all I do is walk a mile around my block, 20 minutes. It's pretty minimal investment of my day, but it's super important to me. And I do keep that practice up regularly. For mind, do you connect what your mind is thinking to what you feel in your body? And again, like back to that stress example, I didn't even realize in the morning when I was, pre-enlightenment, when I was doing the Organize My List, I was actually feeling anxiety pretty much every morning, but I didn't really put 2 and 2 together, that it was because I was letting my mind spiral from the moment I woke up. And now that I do the practice, the 3-part practice, I have much better mornings. My husband's on and he can tell you I'm a much calmer, happier person in the mornings than I used to be. And then do you make the effort to stay present in the moment? And that's really combating that connected, crazy society that we live in these days. Trying to actually be in the moment is part of the definition of mindfulness. It's being in the moment and being non-judgmental. And I tell you, again, it takes practice to do that, but it will make you feel a lot better when you can get a handle on that. And the soul one. So basically for soul, do you have connection with something outside of yourself? And do you make the effort to stay connected? Because it is very important not only to have those connections, but to, again, keep up the practice. So what I've done next is I've mapped the 12 modalities. And again, this will be available to you all on the slides afterwards. But I'm going to walk you through it because this was a lot harder than I thought it would be because there's so much overlap. So if you sat in this presentation and the body things really kind of perked up your ears, the green ones are definitely your starting point. Exercise and nutrition. And I'll tell you, like, those are really at the core of a lot of what I believe in and a lot of what I preach, that they're the hardest to change, but in some ways the most important. So body, I would start with the green, but the blue actually also affect your body. Certainly things in this category, especially yoga, qigong, like I was talking about before, you're moving your body, you're getting exercise in. And the other ones are also really good for basically getting your energy flowing. If you think about acupuncture or Reiki or massage, there's also links to inflammation, basically inflammation bad, things you can do to decrease inflammation good. And a lot of these will help in that respect as well. If it's mind that you were drawn to and you think, oh, that's what I really need to work on, the teal and the purple map to mind down here in the bottom. Let me see if I don't know if you guys can see my pointer or not. The teal being the meditation and mindfulness, the spiritual services, and the patient support programs, as well as psycho-oncology support and music or art therapy. Like clearly all of those things are going to be related to training your mind to be calmer. But it's pretty amazing because the green and the blue also do that. So mind actually pretty much any of these. The reason the green and the blue also affect the mind is because the body and the mind are so closely related. And a lot of these blue ones, especially like if you're doing yoga and you're doing it right, or if you're in a massage and you're really in the massage, you are practicing mindfulness. You are, as long as you're in the moment and really just trying to let go of all of the crazy thoughts, that will help your mind as well. So mind, you actually have a lot of choices for how you want to attack that. And soul is a little simpler. The teal in the meditation, mindfulness, spiritual, and support groups, I think I would recommend for those if it's soul that you're interested in. And the other thing is definitely deepening your connections with energy positive people in your life. So I have just a couple of slides to wrap up. I just want to loop back though first to the exercise we did in the beginning where you wrote down 3 things you like and 3 things you want to change. And so my question is, think about if any of those things, the things that you want to change, relate to the mind, body, soul model that's up on the screen right now. So for example, I'd like to lose a few pounds. That's clearly, we've talked about that. Or I'd like to deepen my spirituality. We've talked about some ways to do that. But if you've written down things that don't relate directly, they probably relate indirectly. So for example, I actually wrote down, I want better sleep habits. That's something I'm still working on. And that can be tackled through better nutrition, exercise. There's a lot of literature around regular exercise helping with sleep habits, having therapy, meditation and mindfulness also help with sleep, with getting to sleep and getting quality sleep. So there's actually a lot embedded in here that can help in terms of if that's one of your goals, better sleep. Lowering stress. If you wrote that down, I've talked already about how the mind and stress are linked and how there's a lot of options for helping with your mind. So even if what you wrote down didn't necessarily relate directly back to these, if you do a little research or think through a little bit more, you might find it loops back to one of these body, mind, soul things that we've talked about today. And I will say, changing my nutrition, actually my nutrition habits and exercising, I lost 35 pounds. So that was a huge yay. And I've been able to keep it off for 2 months or 2 years, sorry. And I feel so much better about myself. It also ended my hot flashes. So I still get them occasionally, but I really attribute it to lowering sugar, lowering white processed carbs, and losing the weight to get to a healthy weight. And my hot flashes all but disappeared, which obviously if you've been through it, that's huge. I also lowered my blood pressure where my doctors had been telling me I was creeping up on needing medication for that. I no longer have those discussions with my doctors. And I was pre-diabetic and I now have reversed my pre-diabetes. So that was pretty nice benefits to basically finding wellness and changing a lot of these habits. I think changing my mental practices really buffered me from the stress of the pandemic because I went through this in 2019 and the pandemic hit 3 months into 2020. So whereas I saw a lot of people around me getting really stressed and stress eating and gaining weight, I was doing great. And I almost felt guilty, but it's really because I had really put a lot of these practices in place for myself and committed and kept doing them. And I believe that these changes will also help me remain cancer-free for many years to come. And that's my wish for all of you, for all cancer patients, to be cancer-free, keep cancer at bay, live the best life that you can. And I really think doing these things can make a huge difference for you. So my last 2 slides are, I'll go through these a little bit quickly so we can do a few questions. A lot of times when I do my soapbox, people say, okay, but I don't have time. There's just no way I can do this. So I've got little hints here for ways to find time or ways to make sure that you do it. If you have opportunities for found time, so for example, when COVID hit and I cut back on my commute, that was found time, convert that to self-care time. So maybe one of your kids gives them an activity. Rather than signing them up for another one, why don't you take that time for yourself? Or something changes in your life. You know, when my kids were really young, I don't think I could have done as much found time, but they're older now. They can do their own homework for the most part. And there's some found time for me. So try to find time like that when you can, and then make it for you. Try to find bang for your buck. So I walk when I'm waiting for my daughter to get off the bus, except when it's winter and I hate waiting in the cold, but I still walk daily. I walk when I'm in a doctor's waiting room. It can be the tiniest little, 10 by 10 room, and I'm walking in circles, getting my 250 steps an hour in. And I purposefully take my kids to an exercise or to their activities at the YMCA so I can work out at the YMCA while they're doing their workout or their classes. So like, that's that bang for the buck. Like, you got to get creative. And, if that means my kid can't do whatever sport with whatever group she wanted to do, she has to go to the Y, that's okay. We're making a compromise. She's still doing her sport and I'm getting my exercise in too. Put it on your calendar. I live by my calendar because I'm in a business job. So I block a couple half hours a day and live by that. And I can't recommend it enough. That helps you make it a priority. Chunk it down. Calm app is 10 minutes at a time. Mindful breathing in the morning, you could just do for even 5 minutes. You could do stretching for 15 minutes. Whatever you do, just commit to it and really make it a practice. Walk out in the sun for 10 minutes a day, practice mindfulness anytime you can, ask for help. And then my last slide is, I have no money. How do I do this? The good news is if you're part of Unite for Her, obviously you do have some funding and you can certainly put this toward any of these modalities, but these are things that are free. So walking is free. I put a link to a CNN article with like the 10 benefits of walking. If walking is too boring for you, I put some hints there about how to make it a game and how to kind of like distract your mind. Like, not to say I want your mind like going in a million directions, but if you just make it a simple game of, I walk around my neighborhood and think, which is my dream house? If I could pick any one house. And that kept my mind occupied for like months during my walks. And it was fun. I was in the moment, I was looking at houses, but I was walking. Listen to books, audiobooks, music, talk to a friend. There's ways to mix it up so you don't get bored. With nutrition, usually a farmer's market would be cheaper than going to the grocery store. I've put a link to Hungry Harvest here because they are national. I'm a big supporter of Lancaster Farm as well for the local people in Philly, and I use them personally. But Veggie Shares from a co-op is a really good, it's not free, but it's a really economical way to do it. And read labels. I've already given you my hints about sugar and chemicals. Mindfulness is free, morning practice is free, friendships are free, religion is free for the most part. And then your work might actually help as well. Check if there's work programs to help with things like weight loss or wellness in general. I know a lot of companies are starting to do that. So I will stop there. Erin, if we have other questions, I'm happy to stay on a little bit longer.
I don't see any questions that have come through the chat, but certainly anyone is welcome if they want more clarification or just want to share how they have incorporated any of these activities in their own life to suggest to anyone else in the group. By all means, go for it.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
This is Mary Davies. I'm from Plainfield, New Jersey. And I just want to say that prior to my being diagnosed with cancer, which was in April of 27 of last year, I walked 2 to 3 hours every day prior to, not knowing why, but I did it anyway. And I believe because of that, I have healed a lot better, getting my body together. So whoever I ever talk to, I emphasize on walking.
Mm-hmm.
Walking and drinking lots of water.
Yep.
So that is my, my go-to.
I love it.
And I just want to say thank you for this information.
You are welcome, dear. I love it. I think that's there's actually evidence of that exercise before, during, or even after is going to be beneficial.
Yes, yeah, yes. Thank you, Mary. I saw
Thank
here
you.
too, in the chat, you're getting a lot of love there, Terry. So they're all so grateful and people are commenting. So watch that. But I did see, how do you get the passport? So I just want to make sure that you, if you don't know about our passport, if you're joining because you saw on our Facebook or somebody told you about it, our passport of services, integrative therapies, everything that really Terry has talked about is available for those women and men that are newly diagnosed within 18 months of diagnosis, or they are living with metastatic disease. Ovarian cancer as well as a part of our program, or recurrent cancer or recurrent ovarian cancer. So breast and ovarian is what we treat. You would connect with one of our nurse navigators to just make sure that you are qualified. And then we make it pretty easy. We get you right there, delivered right to your home so that you can get started on that passport of services and attend a wellness conference. So the best way to find out if you qualify, I'm going to put it in the chat. I'm going to have you email Nina Ritrovato. And you can go right from there. But basically, if you're, newly diagnosed or living with metastatic disease, you do qualify. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Sue, I see some people asking about the slides. They will be posted to the Unite for Her library, correct?
They will. So we have what's called, her library. So uniteforher.org/her library. And in there, you'll see speaker series. So this is recorded. So it will be put up. But we also have a place where we can put Terry's slides too. So you can get access to them. And it's just such a great visual. And, something is in here that speaks right to you. And the connection between body, mind, and soul is so key. It's really the foundation that Unite for Her was founded on. But it is that integrative approach, and you're working hand in hand with your medical community, and you're looking to grow one step at a time. And that is the beauty about this, is that we meet you where you are. It didn't happen overnight for Terry. She worked hard on it. And that's where Unite for Her can help you with the work, help you lift that load, when it gets heavy. And that's why we're here. It's not one size fits all. Everybody isn't going to fit into some of the modalities that might be mentioned, but everybody can move. Just move the way you like to move. Dance, that's moving, right? Like, you'll pick what works for you. So
yeah, Sue, there's actually a question about that, advice for exercise during chemo. And I agree with you. Like I walked and it was nice to kind of build my stamina back up, because I couldn't even make it around the block when I was going through chemo. It was tough.
Yeah.
So walking, I did the dance game with my kids during COVID when, we couldn't really leave the house. The Just Dance, whatever that was, any body movement when you're not feeling well. I know that's really hard. So walking is my best advice if you're actually going through chemo.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you there, Lynn. We should change the title. Maybe we'll change that when we put it up on our library, because really this is good for everyone too. So, we appreciate all the feedback that we get. I do know that there actually is science and studies behind doing some type of form of exercise before and after chemo and radiation, especially radiation, where it helps with exhaustion. And the movement is just like movement. It could just be stretching movement for 10, 15 minutes before, and then 10, 15 minutes after. It can be before you get to your radiation, you go and walk around the campus and then have your radiation, and you walk around again. And here there's this science that's connected to it. So it's so nice when, you can see that. You certainly can do yoga. I see there. Can you do yoga? Yoga is for everybody. And I always say everybody, the body, right? Because yoga doesn't mean you have to put yourself into all kinds of different positions and, pretzel yourself. That is not yoga. Yoga is the power of breath with movement. And that can be as little as you want it to be or as much as you want it to be. But it really is a practice that you can do. Like I'm doing yoga right now, just standing here, because I'm engaging you call it your Udabandha, that inside, pelvic floor, something I know I have to work on. So I try and think of it constantly, because we're standing and sitting so much, So yoga, meditation, mindfulness, we do private sessions at Unite for Her. We do them like this with our providers, where we'll do a special session just for you, created for you, that works for you, that you can mimic then every day, 10 minutes. But if you have a passport and interested in meditation, that's you, Janice, you know, and yoga, and we can certainly have a session of yoga, or 2 or 6 or 10, you know, depending on how many passport squares you have. So know that yoga is for everybody, and yoga is, you can sit and move during yoga if you're, you know, compromised. Of course, you can start on the floor and do yoga. You can start standing if you have a lot of energy and do yoga. But the meditation, the mindfulness, the mind is powerful. My yoga was all about my mind. I had too much negative chatter in it. And it was defeating me. It was defeating me during my treatment. And I really had to dig deep to figure out how to get that out. And yoga helped me, you know, with those breaths, that simple 5-5 breath that Terri did. Everybody can do that. That's yoga, right? Like sometimes we just feel like it has to be so complicated. It doesn't. Is there anything else there? I don't know if Terri, you want to unshare your screen and then we can get up there.
I just wanted to remind people of my lessons here, and then I'll unshare. Be selfish, ask for help, be an active part of your healing and survivorship, and look for and make connections. All right.
Perfect. If you guys want to put it all on gallery view, then we can like sort of see everybody, which is so nice. It's nice to see the faces. But you're getting a lot of love in the chat there, Terri. Take the time to, you know, just look at that. And we appreciate everybody coming out today.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I hope you got something out of it. And thank you so much for coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Eileen, I saw the